meeting, and the first order of business, okay, we have present Greg, Gary, and Larry, the three members of the board. This time, there are no other guests. Would call for the approval of the minutes of the last meeting. With that said, we do not have them available at the moment. So I would entertain a motion to dispense with the approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I make a motion that we suspend the reading of the minutes from the previous meeting at this time until such time as the secretary of the committee has a chance to type those up and produce those for review.
And I second that.
All right. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The first order of business is at the last meeting, we didn't have anything to cover because of the fact that just prior to the meeting, we had received information from USDD regarding automated voice dispatch. Did everyone have an opportunity to look through that?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any questions or discussions on? Well, I would like to say that we have been looking at this particular project as far as EMS technology goes for quite some time. This has not been a 3-week process. This has been something we've been doing for at least 2 or 3 years now. We've also looked at it not from the aspect of what can we do to improve EMS. We've looked at it from the aspect of how can we improve the overall service, whether it be on the dispatch side or it be on the EMS. And I think that this is, again, one of those projects that when you look at it, the automatic voice dispatch, it is something that helps take care of a specific issue that we have with EMS. When dispatching for an ambulance, there are several steps that the dispatcher has to go through. And we've reviewed that particular process again recently, and we have some recommendations for that. But with an automated voice dispatch system, we'd have the opportunity that as soon as the dispatcher clicked the recommend button, making sure that they had chose the closest unit for the dispatch, the computer would automatically then select and assign the dispatch channels that are necessary, and then put the call out in an even voice that would be consistent every call. Now, one of the things that has been of concern in regards to the project that we're working on currently as a group for the EMS contract is the cost factors involved. The automated voice dispatch system has been sent to the 911 board as it is listed on their website as an approved expenditure. This would only cover the cost of the software and equipment that actually dispatches the call. So as far as the end user devices, such as the controllers and speakers and all those other items associated with it, that would not be an included cost.
What would those additional costs be? What will we be looking at the additional cost for licenses, controllers, and peripheral devices?
We had looked at 14 posts, I believe. And the controllers for 14 posts and the speakers and the signboard, I think you could include that, was around 280.
Okay.
Now, we could make requests that, that cost be included in, as part of the contract. We could just recommend that we take and what 911 will cover, go ahead and make that purchase so that we at least have that particular part of it up and running. And then we could begin to look for grants or other types of funding sources that might be able to provide the peripheral devices. That would be pretty much the option. Or we could just decide not to make any recommendation at all in regards to the ABD.
Mr. Chairman, I've thought about this one a lot, and I think it would be advantageous to both sides. One of the goals we're trying to achieve through the whole process is just accountability on both sides. And I think this is going to be a big step towards that. So I think it's something that we should pursue if at all possible. I think it would be well worth our money and well worth the time to be able to do this.
Mr. Chairman, on that, with the understanding of 911 funds sometimes only cover part of a process depending on, or part of an implementation of software. Depending on its use, I think it would probably be appropriate that we include in our recommendations some capital in case there is an issue where part of the system isn't paid for through 911 funds, so that the capital is available to purchase the product if that's our recommendation to do so.
I will say that most of the time with a particular project, I probably would agree with you on that, but I have looked this over. Like I said, I have submitted, but I have not heard back yet from the 911 board. I believe that this particular project is going to be not only beneficial for getting EMS dispatches out, but could also be valuable in other disciplines as well. And that's why I'm glad we found it. I think that it truly does help, because in this case, the EMS dispatch is the one that does take the longest to process the radio to get it, set up to make those connections. It will greatly help reduce that time more than it will any other discipline. But my recommendation to the group would be, after reviewing this, is that we go ahead and include it in our report and recommend to make purchase as eligible by 911 funds. Should we run into an issue that it would take more than that, we're looking at the 2015-16 budget year beginning in July. We're only talking 6-7 months. I would think that if we ran into a major roadblock, our better bet would be to wait until that time. Again, it just helps not to create issue that might slow down anything else that's going on at this time.
Did
restate that again?
Oh, well, I would just say that if it would be the will, I would say we add the automated voice dispatch as part of our report as a subcommittee, but I would not ask for any non-911 funds for it.
I'll motion that.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, going along that same path, again, we did realize that there is this difference in time of dispatch, and after reviewing the technique for the initial dispatch, we did find a couple of things that we believe can help be streamlined or help streamline the system. We currently dispatch on simulcast with the VHF, yet to the best of our knowledge, EMS doesn't use VHF equipment or systems anymore, do they?
We actually do still have VHF radios in the truck
Okay.
as a backup should the 800 system fail.
Okay.
Every truck still has both an 800 radio and the VHF radios in there.
But is it necessary to still maintain the patch on an everyday basis?
I don't think so.
There we go. I think, after having looked at it and like that, I think we could really save some significant time. Leave the radios in the trucks because it does provide a backup, but just not dispatch every run on them. Use them only as an emergency backup. And maybe we set up a deal where, we perform monthly testing, to make sure that the radios are still working, since we won't be using them on a
And
consistent
that
basis.
would be my concern, is that while, we absolutely need to make sure that they're going to be functional should something happen, and we need to use those VHF radios.
And yeah, I don't think there's any reason to eliminate them, but I think that to take that patch down, which then we wouldn't have to wait on the tone going off either, would make a big difference in the time. And I don't think that on its own would even be much that's noticed at all. Now, just in case they don't like the idea of not getting that tone, we do have the option of paging individual 800 radios. So we could set up a truck where it would page the driver, the passenger, and the mobile radio, all three of them direct when a call goes out to that specific apparatus. So you wouldn't get the tone that you normally get, the big long VHF tone, but you would actually get a direct connect alert. So no matter where you're at, if you're in the truck, you're going to get it over your portable and the mobile. If you're out, then your radio is going to notify you specific that you've got a call. I actually kind of think that this may even be better than what we're doing now anyway, because when your radio goes off, you know it's your call.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, how it's set up now, you got to sit and listen to, who it is.
Greg, how are on a question, how are the radios currently, the portable radios, set up as far as, do you have enough that you have 2 per ambulance, or is it
Yes,
2
sir.
per?
No, sir, it's 2 per ambulance.
So if you move from, but if you're on 56 and you're in unit 112 and you have to move to unit 114, do you have to take your radios with you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We have, a good way to look at this, Gary, would be that we have 2 radios for each assigned and manned radio ID. Is a good way to look at that. For instance, if we had the usual matrix and had everybody in place, each truck, obviously with the exception of the QRVs and the supervisors, have two radios on them. And we actually have some spares too, so that's two radios per truck basically.
The only reason I ask is because I know that there had been some discussion from your operations manager of switching away from the Med 56 and Med 62 to a dispatching by the unit number of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys moved trucks, you would actually have to have other radios in that, and that would be how the paging groups would have to be set up.
Yeah, which I think is something that we can overcome. We invited Ralph Bartlett to be here today, but he couldn't make it. We can get around that. I was kind of afraid that might be the case. And it might just be that maybe when they would make such a move, we would continue to actually dispatch the old ambulance by clicking that particular button, whereas then they would still get it on their portable radios, but they wouldn't get it on the mobile. Or maybe even double it up to where, you know, those trucks that aren't normally manned, you'd hit the old truck, you'd hit the new truck. Hitting the old truck sets off the portables. Hitting the new truck sets off the mobile. You know, again, it's not like this is going to be every time, every day. This is going to be unusual circumstances. We'll give up a couple of seconds that we're going to be gaining, but we'll still be ahead, I would say.
I just wanted to make sure before we made any recommendation as to.
No, that's good. I agree with you. That was good discussion. Any further thoughts on that? I think, we'll definitely want to sit down with Tim and Ralph as a group and discuss this before we have Ralph actually go ahead and do some programming. But, I really do believe this could be a real benefit and help cut probably, up to 5-7 seconds off of the dispatch. So you're not having to wait for the tone and like that.
I don't believe that's anything that we have to take to the committee tomorrow. We just need to take what we have so far to the committee tomorrow, correct?
Correct. Is this something that we want to make as a recommendation by the committee? Oh, how about we start all over on that particular discussion?
How about we do that? I'd like.
Okay, we are discussing the fact that we have looked at the dispatch, and we've looked at the dispatch times.
I'd like to recognize the presence of our EMS operations manager, Tim Adams, and just have this correlative discussion that we're having. We'd like some input from him in this discussion.
After reviewing dispatch times, we found that the time that the calls drop till the time that the dispatch occurs is on average higher than it is for the other disciplines. So we took and we sat and reviewed the steps and the processes that go, what the dispatcher has to do once they get the call delivered to the dispatch console. And we found that there is quite a lengthy process for them to go through in order to get the call out on the radio. So in looking at the paragraph here, radio processing of initial dispatch, our recommendations would be that since you don't actually utilize the VHF portion of the radio on a daily basis, that we no longer dispatch or patch those 2 channels anymore, but leave the VHF equipment and system operational, that it can be used as a backup. And what that does is that'll help us to reduce the time that it takes to get the dispatch ready, and you won't have to sit and wait on the tones before you can actually go ahead and voice it.
Because you wouldn't be simulcasting, correct?
Correct. Mm.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. The only, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The only thing that, if I could add one thing, if we could delay or table it until I get everything migrated to 12-hour shifts. Because right now, since we still continue to have 2 24-hour transport trucks, and of course the QRVs on 24-hour shifts, we need that VHF capability to page the miniature pagers. Once we do that, probably beginning of the fiscal year, or the calendar year, January, we could probably do that, have no problem. We've been discussing that in length with Ralph, with the communications tech, and so we're prepared to do that. Just waiting on the migration totally to 12 hours. Is that good with you guys?
That's fine.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I know the 800 radios have the capability of toning,
Paging.
paging.
Mm-hmm.
So that will alleviate the pagers. 12-hour shifts, we won't have to worry about any type of, waking people up, because they'll be awake all the time. No problems. Is that good?
That was word for word what we just said, so
Okay.
that was perfect.
All right.
And one of the other parts that we said at the beginning was that our whole goal with this, we've been actually at this technical review for probably 3 years. This isn't something that happened in the last 3 weeks. And our goal wasn't focused as much on worrying about, issues regarding a contract, but issues regarding getting to the patient, the
Correct.
person that needed help, which included the things that we do as well.
Correct.
And so we felt that, it was important to include the fact that we are discussing issues on both sides here that can help, that we've been working on again for quite a while, and hopefully we can go ahead and get these things implemented. And it's also hopefully show the committee that there are things that are going to work to your favor that are going to help get you there quicker.
Okay.
So,
Fantastic.
Just out of curiosity, in doing some of that thought, knowing some of the discussion that has occurred as far as the paging, is January the time frame that you want to wait to switch over to from the Med 56 to the Unit 112, or is that still something you want to do?
That's probably going to be into the system of growing the system into the model. Eventually, that's what we're going to do. If you can, let me think about that a little bit. I don't right now, just right off the top of my head, I don't see any issues with doing that right now. Really and truly, after everything's migrated to 12 hours, really don't see any issues. It's just going to be to make sure that we're communicating with the appropriate units.
Correct.
On that side, but no, I don't see anything, issues there. We're set to do that. The templates, my understanding, the Excel spreadsheet is built for Ralph or Barbara. So,
correct.
so we can go ahead and start assigning them to the truck per se, a med number. So, good. That's good.
I just didn't know if that time frame was in line with the 12-hour with that January, or if it was gonna be earlier or later, that's all.
Yeah, the priority right now is migrating everything to 12,
Okay.
and then we'll.
Shortly after migration. Okay.
Any further thoughts or questions regarding radio processing?
Just sort of come by to hang out, so.
Well,
Jump in.
Well, we had some questions for you, so I'll let you know.
All right.
I believe that's all that we have. In regards to new business, does anybody else have any?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things that I wanted to touch on just a second, just to clarify and make sure I understood. Over here under positioning software, the second sentence, when it mentions the positioning software discussions were ended, basically at that point, we had not talked about them anymore, but it's not a completely dead issue. This is still up for
Absolutely.
looking at.
Right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure of.
It's just at this point, we haven't had any further discussion.
Understood. The second thing I wanted to make sure of is on the AVL. I know I asked this before, but our goal with this too was to stabilize that connection between us and CCOM. Okay. The AVL we currently have will be capable of doing that without a shadow of a doubt. Is that correct?
The AVL we currently have is in place not only within EMS units, it's also in place in sheriff's departments and some fire apparatus.
Okay.
Anybody that's not using the mobile MCT. The only service that we're seeing a consistent issue with AVL positioning is the EMS agency. I'm not seeing it with the sheriff's department, I'm not seeing it with Stallings, I'm not seeing it with Waxhaw, and with the other departments that consistently have AVL turned on. The difference between the two the difference between those services that we don't have issue with and the EMS that we are having issue with is the routing through the CHS firewall. So, and the fact that your tablets are communicating wirelessly to the modem.
Okay.
So I think if we solve that wireless connectivity to the modem and have that split pipe so that MCT comes directly to us and your patient care stuff can go to CHS, we will be as stable as the sheriff's department is, which we can tell the sheriff's department is stable, and we know when they're having issues or when a individual vehicle is having issues. It's quite evident on the screen. Where with EMS, it's not so evident.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Let's say, take a second
And don't get me wrong, the AVL tool that is part of the CAD is not as comprehensive as a positioning software. It won't tell you where your holes are. You have to, you'd have to have a defined matrix to say move here, type thing like we do currently. It's not going to have amoebas on the screen like a positioning software would. But the cost of the overall cost of the discussions that we had with the positioning software for the size of the EMS agency, that for your agency it just doesn't seem. It seems it's a lot more on an annual basis than I think you would benefit at this point. Now, as your service grows, of course, the discussion is still open for later implementation if the service gets to a capacity size that I don't think our system can handle it.
When you say the system couldn't handle it, the actual AVL system, or what?
More or less and I'm going on assumptions of what I think the future matrix committee is working on, but from what I've read in here, the idea of we're getting 2 more ambulances in the system to cover volume than one person can use on a spreadsheet to determine where to move things. When it starts getting that complex, then I think that
Your spreadsheet gets to be about 40 to 50 rows, 40, 50 rows wide, that could be too complex.
That's when you let a computer figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing too that Tim and I had talked about was the fact that when you get to that point too, we're gonna be busy enough that we want that to be a decision that if it can be made by a positioning software versus one of our folks, one of the supervisors having to take care of that, that would be advantageous to everybody.
I think depending on what the future matrix committee is working on, I think if it's a posting type position with move-ups that will accommodate whatever standards you're setting, I think at this point we can handle that without going to a position software. I think we've got probably another, I really don't even know. I don't know. I could say a number of 3 to 5 years before we would need it, but.
Okay.
We'll be willing to work with you and help you in any way you want as far as postings and like that, so.
That's no problem. It was just, we'll just probably redefine another matrix. Employment matrix or posting matrix. Departments or wherever we have. Just define that.
I'm not,
with the
as I said, I'm not
committee.
sure what the future matrix committee is
Right.
working on, but.
Gary, one thing I wanted to ask too, you were doing some research on the CSS web,
Yes.
I believe.
Yes.
We were looking at if it had some of the capabilities of letting the supervisors know things. What have you found out about that?
It is possible to set up an event-based, either text message or email dump that will allow that as soon as an ambulance goes over a 90-second shoot time, it will trigger the report to you. And it can be both. It can be a report sent to an email address so that the supervisor can pull that up and say, I know it was med 56 or whatever, as well as a text page that says you have an ambulance that went over X shoot time.
Okay.
Which is a trigger to say, go check your email. Or
Can you, can we have several performance indicators? Can it handle several of them,
I can-
such as,
Kind of
let's
trigger
say,
points.
let's say shoot time or response time? And I know we can do something with the hospital.
we can set,
Can you do that?
yeah, each one of those would be an individual event-based
Okay.
trigger.
Okay.
And CSS Web can handle as many as we want to put at it.
Okay. All right.
And that's already part of you already have that software.
We
do you not?
have it, it's part of Christian Stevens' distributed system that we purchased. We are, right now we have the Crystal version and found that we're gonna be better served with the SQL RD version, so they're in the process of switching that, so I haven't built out that event-based trigger yet until we get the full switch over.
So there's no additional cost associated with that swap, right?
No.
Okay.
There's been no, they've agreed, because we just purchased it, and then they're gonna switch it for no cost, so.
Okay.
I mean, on our side, the ultimate goal is I need is up-to-date information as I possibly can, so we can correct any problems that arise, shoot times, whatever. And as soon as we know it, we can correct it real time.
And the way that I was looking at it was talking with the professional services person from CSS, or from Christian Stevens. It would run every 2 minutes and constantly query the database every 2 minutes to look for an over 90-second shoot time or over 30-minute at the hospital time. And as soon as it found it, it would
Send it out.
send it out.
And one of the differences with this is that, it's kind of close to real time because it's a CAD. It really is the CAD. So,
Okay.
That's all the discussion I had.
Well, okay, well, does anybody else have anything else under new business, old business?
I've got a few questions on on your EMS technology recommendations. Would that, I'm looking at what you guys have, are recommending with the 25 units. That would be either a tablet or a laptop that's dedicated to CAD. Right? Okay.
And one dedicated to the PCR.
Yep. Okay, but what we're doing right now is with the technology, we're just speaking of the CAD related connection right here.
Correct.
And then the modems. What I'm looking at is, this is my budget. See, that's what I'm saying. This is my budget, and so what I'm looking at is the prices of these things would have to be somewhere entwined in our capital. This is capital, for the majority of this. So that's just, I'm just trying to
Absolutely.
make sure. Okay. Okay.
I believe that this would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this recommendation would be to make sure that you receive this additional capital outlay to accommodate these.
Okay,
these
okay,
items.
all right. And but the bottom,
So it wouldn't come out
the
of.
bottom is the ongoing connection, so that's operational cost.
Right, but I don't believe,
Okay. Down at the bottom, just item 1, internet services. That would be the ongoing.
That's right.
Because the routers and the other equipment would be one time.
Okay, all right. All right. Okay.
And these items are, through different discussions that we've had at the different committee meetings, we believe this is the equipment that will get you the projects and the accesses that we had discussed, throughout the last 3 weeks, again, as well as over the last few years too. So, again, the main thing that we looked at when we talked about this, we were less concerned, about being able to turn in a report as much as we were about figuring out different ways to reduce that time from the time they call till the time the whole run's finished. So, anything further?
Chairman, do we, I know we've had several discussion items here, and I've read this over. This other stuff that's going on. We don't, with the discussions we've had here, we don't need to add anything more to this document that's been typed up currently, correct? Or do we need to add?
And this is produced as a suggestion.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I think we also discussed about mentioning about the AVD, that it would actually be separate from this one. Wasn't that correct?
And,
I think that's what we discussed.
yeah, as,
Right, it's mentioned, but it's not in the costs.
Correct.
On
It'd
the
be like
last
a
page.
separate item.
a recommendation to you as the subcommittee would be that the subcommittee recommends this be further pursued as a 911 project at this time.
Understood.
Any other questions, thoughts? Well, I'd ask the committee if they're comfortable with what they have in front of them as amended in regards to submission for the committee.
As long as we add that, the subcommittee recommends that statement you said before, I'm satisfied with this document, and I make a motion that we go ahead and send this recommendation to the larger EMS working group.
I second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Well, that'll be packaged up then, and we will send that. I would recommend, at this time now, we have basically fulfilled our obligation as requested to go through this and put this together. It'll be submitted and, made part of the rest of the thing. The easy thing is for us to adjourn, walk away, and be done, and I don't like that idea. I think we can still continue to meet, and I think we ought to actually set dates and times that we do this, because we have a lot on our plate here that we can accomplish, and the vast majority of it's stuff we can do in-house. So, we've had some discussion about, we have the opportunity to improve our mapping. We have the opportunity to, make some other changes and improvements. We've made some of those already. So my suggestion is that whether we do it as a member of subcommittee here or whatever, but we do set a time that we as a group sit down and continue to meet and stay on top of these things.
I think it would be a priority, just for me speaking myself.
The only question I have on that is, once the working group finishes its tasks and is submitted, this committee won't exist. Right? It's a subset of that committee.
Correct.
So,
I
think I don't know that we have to declare it a committee to make and work with EMS to make those changes.
Good point.
So I think that I think we could easily conclude that we've met our obligations as a subcommittee and close and then just meet as needed as representatives from the organization to make those map changes. I don't think they have to be, I don't see why they would have to be part of this process.
I agree.
Good point. Very good. Any other questions, comments? Well, with that, would accept a motion.
I make a motion for adjournment.
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned.
Guys, I'll get those minutes of the last meeting to you quite promptly.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, if you all would like, we can